Hello! Today I'm here to present my panel, From Art to Income, Building a Successful Art Business Online from Scratch. This is going to be a panel where I teach you how to start a successful online business that you can generate income from using your own artwork and designing your own products. This is not going to be a panel teaching you how to draw from zero. I'm going to assume you already know how to draw, or at a minimum have artwork prepared already that you have commissioned from another artist and have commercial permission to sell. I will be addressing this topic from the viewpoint of a person who wants to adopt a more business entrepreneurial mindset in the way that they handle their artwork. Some of the points I address may come across as harsh, but I do not want to mislead you in the process of trying to find success in any way whatsoever. I do not want to sugarcoat the process of becoming successful with your artwork either. I find it deplorable when people have a tendency to romanticize art as a career, as the majority of the time it isn't easy in the least. With that being said, take into consideration that I can only speak from my perspective and experiences. I've done a lot of research on the topic over the years, but ultimately there are always going to be exceptions to the points I make in this panel. I simply cannot take every single particular case into account before I make a declarative statement. Listen to the words I say, weigh them out yourself, and consider which aspects of my advice fits you in particular and which aspects don't. Life and advice is never a one-size-fits-all. Now let me introduce myself. I am Keozia, and I am a 28-year-old illustrator who has been selling my artwork in my online store as my primary source of income for 6.5 years. I have processed over 30,000 orders on both my online storefronts combined, and I probably roughly have 40,000 or so keychains in circulation. I have sold my artwork at 20 or so conventions across the country, including the giant and illustrious Anime Expo. See you at Anime Expo 2025, by the way. I do not rely on commissions as my primary source of income, as the return on investment is generally too low for me, and I do not pay for advertisement for my artwork. I only use social media to advertise my store. I do also have experience in plush toy design work and patent illustration, but only on the side, as my online business is my main source of revenue. When it comes to running a successful online business, I believe the mindset of the artist plays a huge contribution to their success. According to the Small Business Administration, 20% of businesses fail in their first year after opening, and 49% of small businesses fail after only 5 years. I believe when it comes down to building an established business, longevity is the goal. And a lot of artists make the mistake of getting burnt out immediately or discouraged as soon as there isn't an instant success. Success takes time, intention, and passion, and this isn't a get-quick-rich scheme. In order to pull this off, ultimately you must have confidence in yourself and ignore the haters that call your confidence delusion, because when you're the best, you outlast the rest. In this panel, I will be answering the following questions. Is my artwork or product good enough to sell? What products should I sell? What manufacturers should I use for these products? How can I open an online store? And what site should I use? Should I focus on selling fan art or original characters? Is fan art and fan merch legal? What happens when you're caught selling fan art? Should I sell at conventions? Do you need a following before selling? If I don't have a following, how do I gain one? Do I have to become a content creator to be successful when selling my artwork? How do I know when it's time to take art seriously as a career? And when should I quit my day job? How to stay sane and not ruin a hobby when turning it into your career? And should I be wary on pursuing an art career because of AI? Now, let's get into the details and address some of the primary questions of getting started on the process of turning your artwork into income. Is my artwork or product good enough to sell? A common question I come across, and funnily enough, 9 times out of 10, you won't know the answer until your artwork actually sells, of course. However, like anything in life, you can never really fully answer. You can only make an educated guess. Making an educated guess is the foundation of running a business, and the more information you know, the more educated you become on the topic, which makes it easier to guess what the answer might be. How can you make an educated guess about your artwork? One way to do so is to look around on social media and see what's selling. If you're going to strive for financial success, you have to make sure your product is able to compete with the market. There's also an extremely important factor you must consider. Are you drawing to serve yourself, or are you drawing to serve others? There is nothing wrong with drawing or creating artwork in a self-serving manner. However, you must always consider the fact just because you can draw or make or piece an artwork, that doesn't mean you're entitled to other people's money or support. Almost anyone can learn how to draw after all. Things that you enjoy might not be popular or well received by others being the market in this case. And in order for the market to want to hand you their money for your product, generally the product must serve them in some way. Maybe they like the characters, maybe they like the colors, maybe they like the size of the product you're selling, or maybe they think your product would make a good gift for a loved one. In some way or another, your product must serve them in some manner. People will not buy something they don't want. That being said, when it comes to your artwork in particular, you must handle the process with humility. I specialize in keychains, and when I first started, I printed out prototypes of my keychains and asked for feedback from my whopping 30 followers at the time, asking, if I sold this, would anybody buy it? After reading some of the comments, I realized I got positive feedback, which gave me the clear to do a test run on my keychains as a product. People love giving feedback and expressing their opinions on a particular topic. Everybody wants to feel important, and giving them an option to become a critic fills that role. Feedback is incredibly valuable, and yes, it can be painful to hear sometimes as a very sensitive artist, but the path to success is defined by resiliency, and you're taking your first steps to get there. I highly suggest having prototypes or first copies of your artwork made when you're asking for feedback, as usually a simple digital mock-up generally doesn't provide enough information for someone to provide high-quality feedback. With a digital mock-up, people can't see the actual quality of the product you're trying to sell, and that is a vital piece of missing information that may skew the feedback that they can provide. But Kyoza, prototypes are expensive to print, and I don't know if I'm going to waste my money. At all times, you must have confidence in yourself, and one way you can show that is by literally investing in yourself, as spending the money communicates the idea that you think your product is worth investing in by having at least a sample made for people to view. A sample will show your future customers exactly what you intend to sell. Listening to their feedback and then taking it to heart is an incredibly crucial and important aspect of running a business. With that being said, photography is also an important aspect of protecting the integrity of your brand. High-quality product photos showcase your product's quality, and low-quality and unedited photos can misrepresent your product's quality, so I suggest you looking up a how to edit photos video on YouTube at the minimum. You don't need a professional camera either. I used an iPhone 12 for the longest time, and as long as you know how to edit a photo, you should be fine. Making sure you represent your product in a very high quality light ensures other people may see the value that you see in your product. It is incredibly important to communicate at all times how high quality your product is, or how high quality your product is going to be. Here is an example of what I mean about portraying your product in a good light. The image on the left is low quality, out of focus, and doesn't show the vivid colors of my actual product. The one on the right, however, shows the colors more accurately to how my product looks in real life. The image is clear and in focus and looks far more attractive than the image on the left. Here is another example of the importance of having good photography. The photo on the left is boring, dull, and communicates nothing about the mood or expression my product is trying to convey. The photo on the right, however, has prop items included with my standee and now portrays a more festive atmosphere that fits the Halloween vibe so much better. Also note how taking photo at the character's eye level makes the overall image more appealing. Having your products photographed in a way that the eyes are level with the viewer makes for a more attractive photo when taking captures of humans or mammal subjects. So long story short, is my artwork or product good enough to sell? My answer to that is to make a sample of your artwork on a prototype, post photos of it online, ask for feedback. You can ask either your followers, or you can ask reddit.com, or you can ask twitter.com, or you can ask Instagram. But ask for feedback, listen to what people say, and take that feedback heavily into consideration. And if you get good feedback, highly consider moving forward with your product. What products should I sell? Before you get started selling your artwork, it is highly suggested you envision the products you're selling as your brand rather than just a product with your artwork on it. Henceforth, I'm going to refer to the artwork and products you're selling as your brand because having a brand is just that important. Brand, like the name suggests, is a set of features or characteristics that distinguishes your products from its competitors. Take my artwork, for example. My artwork in particular has a very obviously distinguishable design aspect. My eyes are always similar between illustrations, my proportions remain the same, the coloring style remains the same, the style remains the same, and even the back of my keychains are all the same. They always have the back of the character on the backside of the keychain. Similar to how Funko Pops are immediately distinguishable from other figures on the market, the easily identifiable traits in my artwork communicates to my customers, hey, Kyoza drew this without a doubt. These traits all add up to a sense of uniformity. For whatever reason, uniformity is a highly desired trait and aspect for humans in general, collectors in particular. Examples of products with good uniformity are Beanie Babies, Nikes, Nindroids, Fumo Fumo plushies, Littlest Pet Shops, so on and so forth. So many artists criticize those with same face syndrome, but guess what? Those same face syndrome artists have artwork that communicate, I, the artist, drew this right away, and people like that. My keychains very obviously have same face syndrome, and that is 1,000,000,000% intentional. Yes, it sucks to have to nerf my own artistic ability to fit the quote-unquote guidelines and regulations of my past artwork, but it is an undeniable fact that uniformity sells. Remember, my goal is to use my artwork to pay my bills, so this is how I have to achieve that. That being said, what products specifically should you sell? You must take into consideration your artwork in particular. What medium do you think would work best for it? If you're an artist who does a lot of detail, a small keychain won't work well for you. Can you simplify your style for a detailed enamel pin though? It's possible and should be considered. What about a very well-designed jacket or hoodie that can show all the details of your artwork on a bigger canvas? Or maybe it'd even look better on a blanket. Now those are some things that might be better suited for your needs. Maybe you're more of a simple artist. Things like keychain and enamel pins might be your best option. Or maybe stationery or stickers. Those are cute choices too. The artwork must be well suited for the type of product you intend to sell in order for your product to really shine. My artwork, for example, a detailed chibi style, doesn't work well on charms that are around 2 inches or below, so I specifically print them out at a 3 to 3.5 inch size in order for people to see the tiny details I include in my artwork. My artwork also doesn't look good on small pins as the details get lost, so bigger pins are best suited. My chibi style artwork doesn't look that good blown up in the size that fits a print either, and the poor sales of my prints reflects that fact. Picking products that show your artwork nicely and clearly are a significant contributor to a product's success, and once you find what type of product suits your artwork best, ground yourself to that product in particular and work on perfecting that product. I started out my business and brand with keychains, and even though my business has grown to sell other products such as pins, phone charms, plushies, prints, happies, acrylic standees, and stickers, I've spent the majority of my time perfecting my acrylic keychains, and they remain my top seller because of that fact. So to answer the question, what products should I sell? It really depends on your artwork in particular and finding a product that makes your artwork shine. What manufacturers should I use for these products? The majority of artists use manufacturers in China. The best way to communicate and find new manufacturers in China is through a website called Alibaba.com. But understand, Alibaba isn't a singular manufacturer, but instead a marketplace to find different manufacturers who specialize in different products. However, there are websites independent of Alibaba you can also use too. Understand that I have not personally tested some of these manufacturers, but this should be a good place for starting out at the minimum. For 10 by 11 prints, I use cat prints for holographic and fireball printing for standard prints. For business cards, Vista Prints is a standard option. For acrylic keychains, Wooacry, Vograce, Vogessi, and Zap Creatives. For enamel pins, Vograce, Vogessi. For wooden charms and keychains, Vograce, Zap Creatives. For stickers, Vograce, Zap Creatives, Sticker App, and CustomStickers.com. For shipping material, Amazon, eBay, PackagingSupplies.com, PaperMart.com, and ClearBags.com. Any other type of specialized good has a highly likelihood of being found on Alibaba.com if these aren't the items you're looking for. Take into consideration, a lot of the manufacturers on Alibaba.com are usually mass manufacturers, meaning you'll be faced with a minimum order quantity amount of from anywhere from 10 pieces to 100, but some of the listed websites I mentioned like Zap Creatives, Wooacry, and Vograce offer no or a very low minimum order quantity for items, meaning you'll be able to order one piece as a sample to save money when testing out a new product. Manufacturers are the best bang for your buck when it comes to creating products, as they'll offer you the cheapest possible cost per item out there. Print-on-demand services, however, like Redbubble, Printful, or Gelato, will cost you more money per product, as these services to print your items are usually ordered immediately from your customers. Because you don't receive a sample or prototype of your finalized product, I don't recommend printing on-demand sites unless you first test the product quality out yourself. Every product I've ordered from Redbubble has been incredibly low quality, so I would recommend avoiding them altogether. Printful, on the other hand, is more expensive to use, but in my experience, better in quality overall. For me, print-on-demand services are too costly, so the profit is generally not worth the trouble, but again, this is from my experience and the products I tend to sell. How can I open an online store, and what sites should I use? Because I'm going to consider my audience as being a complete novice to selling their artwork online, I'm going to suggest Etsy. I personally started my online selling journey on Etsy.com, and later down the road I opened up a personal site on Shopify using my own domain name, Keozia.store. I did this because Etsy does take a good percentage of my profits per item, but at that point I had a big enough following to garner attraction towards my personal site myself. However, when I first started selling my artwork, Etsy's marketplace made up for the lack of following I had when I initially started. For me personally, I was able to live off of my artwork via Etsy at a following count of 3,000 or so followers, but only at 10 to 15,000 followers that I feel comfortable enough to draw people into my own site. Shopify has its own fees and percentages they take per order, but overall, every online site owned by someone other than yourself will cost you a fee to use their service. What makes Etsy's fees worth it is their marketplace function of the site. You see, when you make a listing on Etsy, you're able to add tags to the listing, which then allows that item to show up in the search bar. Rather than you having to advertise your new products to your followers or strangers online via a paid advertisement, Etsy allows your items to show up in their marketplace/catalog when people are searching for products like yours. For example, if someone searches Hatsune Miku keychain on Etsy, there is a high possibility one of my Hatsune Miku keychains pops up in their search results. A stranger who has never seen me or my artwork before now has a way to purchase my items. This is invaluable and in my opinion makes Etsy's fees 100% worth it. People also trust Etsy more than they do personal sites, as Etsy has a long history and reputation of being a pretty good company. So people might even prefer using your Etsy site for that fact alone, as they trust Etsy more than they trust you. Etsy also provides buyers insurance for all orders valued under $250. In the case that if a customer reports a missing package but the item is marked as delivered on your end, Etsy will refund the customer and you won't have to pay anything out of pocket. Etsy also automatically creates a shipping label for you when someone purchases an order. When someone checks out on your online store, the customer will input their shipping address and Etsy will generate a button you can click that will automatically create a shipping label for the customer's order. All you have to do is print out that label and attach it to the package. Etsy also automatically generates a tracking number for the customer and sends it to them as soon as you click that Create Shipping Label button. Etsy also automatically generates a 1099 tax form for you. At the end of the year, you upload that 1099 form to your tax filer to report your taxes that way. Etsy also handles international orders for you. This is important because United Kingdom orders, for example, require you to have an IOSS tax number now, and because Etsy is so big, they give you their tax number to write on the package so you don't have to get a tax number yourself, which usually requires a foreign lawyer. Etsy also gives you the experience needed to run your own online store. Etsy knows their sellers are usually novices to the topic of running an online store, so Etsy holds your hand and walks you through the process the entire time. They also have a support number you can call if you need help with selling too. Cons for Etsy, however, is they do expect you to ship orders out within a week, and they have a public reviewing system. With a personal site like Shopify, they give you the option to add the reviewing section to your site, but they don't require it. For Etsy, they don't allow you the option to disable reviews, so you'll need to understand it is important to provide a good service and a good product when selling on Etsy. Some artists feel inclined to send mini freebies or gifts with their orders to entice customers to leave a positive review. However, not once have I personally done this with my orders, and every time I make a purchase on Etsy and it comes with extra junk, I usually just throw it out. But again, it's totally up to how you want to handle this. In the case that you get a negative review, you have a few options. Contact the customer to see if you can resolve the issue, as the customer is allowed to adjust the review after the review has been made, or you're allowed to make a public comment on the review that left the low stars. Now, I want you to understand something when you receive a negative review. There are two types of people in this world, rational and irrational. Sometimes people will leave a rational negative review and you'll just have to accept that fact and learn from the situation. However, there are indeed times that the people leaving a negative review are just irrational people who can't be reached, or at least not in the sense of a response to a review on Etsy.com. It is imperative you understand that when responding publicly to a review on Etsy, that you consider speaking more so to the audience rather than the individual who left the review themselves. A good majority of the time, the irrational person leaving a negative review is just angry and out for blood, and now is the time for you to defend yourself in the public with your response. After all, the reviewer will read your response once and be done usually, but your response to that person will be read upwards of hundreds of times from people looking at your store's reviews before they place an order. Attacking the person in retaliation for the negative review is childish and myopic, but explaining your side rationally gives your audience the bigger picture of what happened regarding the negative review. You cannot edit your public response after you've made it, so think your words over carefully before you react with anger or agitation at the negative review. So ultimately, for a beginner, I recommend Etsy as the online store you should choose to start your storefront. Should I focus on selling fan art or original characters? Fan art sells. That's why you see it all the time. Fan art of pre-established characters are popular because people know those characters and have developed a bond with that character in one way or another. They may like the character's personality, they might be attracted to the character, or they might simply just like the character design. Either way, people gravitate towards the familiar, and in fan art is incredibly familiar. For the goal of being financially successful, I would suggest drawing fan art for this reason. However, customers who generally like you as a person may want to buy something more personal to you because they like you as a creator. I would suggest drawing original characters when you're up to it, as it is very lucrative to produce something that only you can produce, an original entity. Gradually, over time, consider creating more original work when you can afford to do so, as originality will always be more valuable than any fan art. However, consider that having something original does usually take longer for fans to latch onto in a way for it to contribute to being a sizable chunk of your income. Yes, there are times an OC-only artist performs incredibly well initially, however, I rarely see this being the case for the average artist. So when it comes to focusing on selling fan art or original characters, I suggest you eventually do both, but start out with fan merch, as it is more likely to bring you financial success. Is fan art and fan merch legal? Characters belonging to a series that don't belong to you follows under the category of intellectual property, as in the property of someone else. Each intellectual property holder will have a different policy regarding how they feel about fan art and fan merch of their properties, or if they even allow it. Some companies and IP holders are very supportive of fan merch, but there are also companies who are very anti-fan merch. Some companies who are very pro-fan merch include MiHoYo and their properties such as Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Doki Doki Literature Club, Blue Archive, Vocaloid, Girls Frontline, V-Shoujo, some indie VTubers like Doki Bird, and Toho, to name a few. But some companies like Nintendo, Disney, and Sanrio are incredibly litigious and quite literally forbid fan merch from being creative. When it comes to fan merch, you must stay informed of these policies at all times, because at any time a company can retract their fan merch policy, and sometimes companies will sell an intellectual property to another company, so the fan merch policy will change or expire as a result. So to answer the question of is fan art and fan merch legal? The answer is it depends on the policy of the intellectual property holder. What happens when you're caught selling fan art? If caught wrongfully infringing on a company's intellectual property, usually they will just send you a cease and desist letter. A cease and desist letter is just a letter saying, hey, please stop selling merch of our properties and our characters. If you don't stop selling them, we will pursue further action legally. Over the years, I've received a few, and my response is just not selling that piece of artwork anymore because the company has asked me to stop. I've never, in my entire time of selling fan merch, seen a company immediately sue a small artist for selling a few pieces of merchandise. I would assume it would be because it is too costly to take a small creator to court over something so monetarily insignificant when lawyers are so unbelievably expensive. If a company asks you to stop selling their characters, just respect their request. There are plenty of other companies that support fan merch and focus on those positive aspects instead. Should I sell at conventions? In my opinion, after seeing a lot of artists come on social media portraying the con life as an easy way to make thousands of dollars, conventions have been extremely hard to be accepted into as a result. Most conventions have a jury you must apply to in order to get accepted, and recently on their official social media accounts, I keep seeing the same sentiment. We have reached record-breaking numbers of applicants. Essentially, more now than ever, artists are trying to apply to get into conventions, as the whole process has become made so popular. So long story short, it is incredibly competitive to get into them now. Also, conventions, now aware how desirable they are for artists, are raising their prices of their tables as a result. Every single year that I apply at certain conventions, I notice that the prices have risen in order to vend at them. This, of course, is probably due to the overall economy not doing so well, and these companies now have to increase their booth prices in order for them to afford to vend. Then, we also need to take into consideration that anime conventions are usually split into two parts: an exhibitor hall and an artist alley. Artist alleys used to be assumed as small artists selling fan merch, and exhibitor hall is assumed to be professional brands and figure resellers reselling cheap figures at 20x profit. Nowadays, I've seen the sentiment that people are preferring to shop in the artist alley over exhibitor hall due to the usually insane prices of the exhibitor hall products. But some conventions allow fan artists in their exhibitor hall in addition to the artist alley. I'm under the impression that artist alleys have been performing better than exhibitors hall recently, but that is just based on the general sentiment I've been seeing in online discourse. Overall, however, no matter exhibitor hall or artist alley, I've personally seen both sides report a significant drop in sales due to the current economic recession we're currently facing. I am personally avoiding conventions for this reason, Travel and hotels are also more expensive now, but I don't think there's any harm in applying to local conventions, especially if there's an artist alley available. If you intend to sell at any event or market for that matter, I personally use Square Terminal to accept credit card and digital transactions. So to answer the question, should I sell at conventions? Personally, in my opinion, there are times it can be very, very profitable. However, in this current economy and the current state of conventions, I personally don't recommend them at the moment. Maybe in a couple years when our economy gets a little bit better, and maybe when not as many people apply to conventions as a result, possibly consider doing them. But at the moment, I personally am not, so I just personally don't recommend them at the time. Do you need a following before selling your artwork? If I don't have a following, how do I gain one? It will always help, but it doesn't guarantee anything. I was living off my artwork at 3,000 followers, but I know a lot of huge artists that have no clue how to market themselves or run a business, so they still have to work a day job, even with 50 to 100,000 followers. I've seen artists in the 75 to 150,000 follower range perform poorly at conventions, and I've even seen big artists not reach group funding goals even with such a large following. Ultimately, I personally believe that it comes down to one simple fact. Is your product worth parting money for? In an economy like our current one, the threshold of people willing to part with their money is decreasing, so focus on creating a product good enough, beautiful enough, cute enough that is worth separating your money for. I've also seen a lot of smaller artists have an insane amount of sales too. It doesn't necessarily mean anything if you have a big following or a small following. Really, ultimately all it matters is if your product is worth purchasing. How do I gain a following if I don't already have one? A lot of people ask for tips on how to gain a following, and as always, what works for you might not work for someone else, but I'll still try to provide some tips that can help you grow. This question goes hand in hand with the question, when drawing fan art, should I focus on popular series that are trending at the moment and series that are popular, or something else? And the answer, of course, is situational. My best advice for growing a following is to revisit the who are you trying to serve with your artwork ideology. A lot of people try to chase trends when selling fan merch, and although sometimes that can be successful, more often than not, other artists are also trying to chase that trend, so then you're faced with heavy competition. If your products have a proven track record of selling successfully, totally go for it. But I will say if you can get your product out much quicker than the average person, you're up a significant advantage over everyone else. When a series is trending, that is when a lot of eyes are on the series, and if that series is good, there's going to be an uptick of people looking for merchandise of that series. It is always exciting to find a new series that you love, and being able to purchase something from that series right away, think of it almost as like a souvenir for the excitement. Novelty, as in something that's completely new to you, is a fleeting but exciting moment, so if you capitalize off that fact, you have a higher likelihood of success. However, ultimately, trendy series generally are just that, a trend, and in my experience, flavor of the month characters tend to only bring financial success for a few months after the series has become popular. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, just in a society like today with social media, people tend to move on rather quickly to the next thing that gets their attention. That being said, underserved communities and fandoms tend to be the most successful way to grow an audience. Smaller fandoms that don't have a lot of merchandise tend to be desperate for everything and anything that has to do with their fandoms, so that area is completely underserved. There is no competition, so you have a higher likelihood of having the entire fandom's eyes on you and your products. This is invaluable. Some smaller fandoms are so desperate for anything that they buy anything you release just for the principle of owning something from a series that they care so much about. For the longest time, my biggest small fandoms I served were Doki Doki Literature Club and Girls Frontline. These fandoms were so happy to receive anything of their series, so it was easier for me to grow closer to that fandom and work in tandem with what they wanted to see me create. I directly listened closely to what the fandom wanted, what their suggestions were for future products, and we both worked together and grew hand in hand. I had monetary support from that community from them buying my products, and they get more obscure items that people weren't interested in making that fit their niches and desires. This is how I ended up creating wedding dress versions of my Doki Doki Literature Club keychains. People really wanted to feel like they could marry the girls from Doki Doki Literature Club, and I gave them something that made them feel closer to that dream. The process of growing with a small fandom is also incredibly rewarding, as you end up becoming friends with everyone. In an era where a lot of people are experiencing a loneliness epidemic online, it is much easier to grow closer to someone when you share the same interests. However, inversely, people following too closely to a fandom can be detrimental if the series starts to die out. People will only know you for that series, and when they are no longer interested in that series, they are no longer interested in you. The solution is to serve multiple small series, maybe 3 at a time, and pay closely attention to the series and watch your sales to see if the fandom is dying out. So to answer the question on how to grow a following, the answer is to find small underserved fandoms and work hand in hand with them in order for both you guys to grow together. Underserved communities love supporting small artists and other members of their communities, but don't be afraid to strike when the iron's hot on trends at the same time if you feel you can get those products out extremely quickly. At the same time, you must always keep in the back of your mind that you might have to move on from a particular series if it's dying out. Should I do commissions? I, for the life of me, cannot handle deadlines or obligations. It genuinely drives me mad. And I think subconsciously the pressure of trying to anticipate what the person is wanting from me fills me with a level of uncertainty and doubt that genuinely makes me lose my mind. That being said, commissions, or having someone pay you to draw their characters, can be a valuable thing to your brand, or it can be a one-way ticket to burnout town. As sociopathic as it sounds, I would only consider accepting commissions if you feel as though you could obtain value from the company or entity that is commissioning you. If the commissioner has a large fan base, go for it, as exposing your artwork to new eyes can bring in future fans that want to support you. However, I personally do not accept commissions from personal/smaller entities, as you must keep this fact in your mind. I can draw this illustration for $500, or I can make a piece of merchandise from the series and end up selling 500 units. For me, 9 times out of 10, the return on investment for personal commissions is simply too low. I can draw one picture, get paid and be done, or I can create a product that I can sell for 10 years straight or even the rest of my life. Combining the fact I cannot handle stress and pressure well and the fact that I'm a size where I need to make X amount of dollars to keep my store open, to say the least, commissions rarely work for me in my business model. I also get burnt out easily and find other artists get burnt out easily from commissions too, so simply put, I avoid commissions to protect my sanity. That being said, if you're personally open to doing commissions, I've heard good things about the art commissioning website VGen for handling the process of people ordering commissions from you, but personally, almost every other artist I've commissioned online, I just found them while scrolling on Twitter. Should I run sales for my store? I recommend not usually, as too many sales can cheapen your brand. Maybe 2 a year at most, but too many sales will lower the confidence of potential customers. If a customer sees you running a sale every month or every 2 months, what is enticing them to buy your products on release day when they can just wait for the product to end up on sale soon? Release days are important, as these are the biggest days for you to capture your customers' attention, because inevitably the new will become old, and for whatever reason, old is unattractive to most people. On average, I've seen the most success promoting a new product for about 10 days before the product's release. Otherwise, people will just grow tired of waiting for the item and move on to something they can get instantly. At any moment, you can discover a new product in your life and buy it instantly, so sometimes waiting too long to release the product will hinder sales. So overall, I recommend running sales twice a year at most, but not too frequently, as it lowers buyers' confidence. Do I have to become a content creator to succeed at selling my artwork? In my opinion, more so now than ever, it is incredibly valued to quote-unquote content create when creating artwork. Imagine 2 accounts. One account just posts their artwork every week or so and then disappears until the next time. The other account, however, shows you the process of creating the artwork. They talk about the highs and lows of content creation. They talk about their likes and dislikes and maybe their favorite food or anime series, being incredibly transparent in the process of trying to chase their dreams of selling their artwork. Which one are you more likely to engage with or follow more closely? Probably the second one. Not to say the first account has any less value, but people in an era where AI is seemingly destroying a lot of creativity have a tendency to gravitate towards people who are more human and similar to them. There is also the possibility of people wanting to learn from your process too, so they're likely to tag along for the ride of following your business in your account. It was interesting, and I only noticed it recently actually. I was at a convention one time, and before the exhibitor hours are open to the public, a lot of exhibitors and artists are allowed to shop around before the general public comes in. I noticed that I was actually gaining a significant amount of sales during this time, and I noticed on these people's badges they had the artist badge, and I realized a lot of other artists followed me as a source of inspiration for their business model. It was funny. I initially thought, why on earth would they want to support their competitor? But then I realized a lot of people felt I had brought them value just by being open and honest with my experiences of running an art business, and they felt compelled to support me for that fact alone. Sometimes people feel the need to support you because maybe they are inspired about the fact that you're chasing your dream. Some people genuinely don't have the confidence to do the things that they truly want to do in their life, so living your life open and honestly may encourage people more than you will ever truly know. A lot of people have the idea that if they see others doing the things that they want to do, they might be able to do it too, so I will always recommend being open and honest with your art business via content creation, but again, it's ultimately up to your decision if being a content creator is for you. Not to mention, in addition, content creation can bring in supplemental income to your business when posting on certain platforms. Content creators can get directly paid from YouTube if they make YouTube videos touching on the topic, and even I believe people can make money from posting on TikTok as well. Content creation is always a safe bet for additional ways your fans can support you too. Some people don't have the financial means to support you directly right now with their money, so supporting a content creator makes it easier for them to show you how much you mean to them, whether it be by commenting or sharing your posts, or by even quietly watching your live streams. Content creation gives people a way to help you out when funds are low. Having the ability to also watch you grow is incredibly rewarding to witness for people too. For example, as an artist, I've specifically chosen to become a VTuber because it makes the content creation process easier, and now I can communicate and connect with my audience on a closer level. VTubing for me is a great way to showcase my artwork skills live and in motion. And it's easier now to put a face to my artwork and my brand. I know it's not required to become a content creator to be a successful artist, but I highly, highly, highly recommend it, and especially recommend considering VTubing too, as the foundation of VTubing was created by artists with a majority of VTuber fans appreciating artwork more than the average person. It is also easy to draw merch of your model, of course, adding to the point about creating original content is extremely valuable from before. How can I face failure and jealousy? Facing failure is one of the harshest realities of someone who's trying to chase a dream that seems impossible. You will fail. You will face failure. You are a human. Your judgment will not always be correct, and sometimes you'll be so off the mark you'll feel stupid for even considering the possibility of being successful. This is unfortunately one of the costs of being human. You won't always be right. That's just the reality of the situation. However, such is life. I've always said one of the biggest contributors to my success was the fact that I've simply just failed more times than the average person has ever tried in the first place. Statistically speaking, not trying has a 0% of success, but trying grants you at least a rate higher than 0. Some things might work and some things might not work, but you must always be critical of the current facts surrounding your failure. Was the timing not right to release the product? Was the price too high? Did my artwork not perform well next to other products in a similar price range or bracket? Those are the things you must consider. Personally, sometimes I've noticed my products absolutely flop on release, but gradually increase in sales down the road. Sometimes my timing isn't right for the release of my products. Sometimes products just take time when it comes to gaining traction. You'll never know what's going to work exactly, and that's okay. That's what makes it fun and exciting, I think. It's almost as if you're trying to figure out a puzzle. That's another reason why I like Etsy so much over just Shopify though. Maybe my following, the people I immediately direct to my Shopify store, aren't really interested in the series I'm releasing a character from. Maybe I mostly have fans who like brightly colored things and the product is too dull or too dark for my current fan base. This is where Etsy comes in. Because of Etsy's reach and size, they have a higher likelihood of recommending your product to a person or group of people that are more likely to enjoy your product and purchase it as a result. Because truly, there are going to be times where the things you want to make and the products your fan base want to buy don't align perfectly, so that's why we seek out entities who are stronger than us, have more power and resources than us, and in this case, it's Etsy's marketplace. Other times, your products are just going to suck. That's it. Maybe you had one of those moments where you felt like you couldn't draw or create and your product ends up reflecting that fact, unfortunately. That happens too, and it's completely normal. I have products that have sucked too, and yeah, I'll need a few days to lick my wounds and tend to my bruised ego, but it's the ability to continue even when faced with failure that's so vital when it comes to running a business. Failure to me is a good thing, actually. Ultimately, you have a question that you're not entirely sure of the answer to, and failure provides you with some sort of information. And any kind of information is valuable. All kinds of information is valuable. Any piece of information learned contributes to knowledge, and having more knowledge of the situation at hand makes you more confident when making decisions in the future. Think about it as if you were trapped in a maze with only one way out. You have 3 door options. You open one of the doors and there's a little note on the table that says failure. Are you going to give up there? No, because you were just granted information that told you, hey, this isn't the door you should have chose, but there are 2 more doors left you can try. And guess what? You're not going to sit down in that room and give up. You're going to get up and try the other 2 doors. That's how you need to see failure, a source of information that can be used for personal gain that can ultimately help you reach your goal. Failure is a piece of information that will directly contribute to your success. That being said, it'll save you a lot of time to watch the failures of others too. Do not relish in the suffering of these individuals. Instead, perhaps be courteous and even consider leaving a comment encouraging them to continue, but study their failure as equally as you study their success. Watch when people make posts indicating their low sales on a certain product. Watch when Kickstarters don't reach their funding goals. Watch when plushies on Makeshift don't get funded. Was it the creator who wasn't popular enough to reach their goal? Was the plushie simply too ugly for people to want to make a purchase? Watch when companies put their products on sale. Was it quickly after the product's release, indicating sales didn't perform as expected? All of these failures, the failures of those around you, the failures of your own brand, all of these are valuable pieces of information that you can benefit from by knowing. Now, jealousy. Artists, humans who feel emotions so compelling they decide to find a way to tangibly show that emotion to other humans in the form of a physical or visual piece of art, are sensitive ass people. We really are. I'm always moping around and complaining about my artwork not performing as well as I think it should. It hurts when I only get double digits engagements on some of my posts, despite allegedly having over 80,000 followers combined on all my social media accounts. Poor performance is the name of the game. The majority, if not all of social media, will punish you for not posting on their platform 24/7. There is nothing that can be done to prevent this, unfortunately. It just is what it is. Then, when you're feeling insecure, you see some big shot account with 200,000 followers post something that objectively took less than an hour, absolutely blasting your pathetically performing post out of the water. The jealousy and envy you feel in that moment might destroy you. There is nothing around jealousy. It's a human emotion like anything else, and it's natural. It's as natural and valid of an emotion as happiness, hope, anger, and vindication is, and you cannot stop it. I bet you get jealous when you see a small creator get their breakout moment, when you see them get a huge opportunity you think you deserved instead. This is a normal response to a normal emotion, jealousy. The only thing you can do to stop the jealousy from literally killing you is reframing your thinking around the topic. Rather than seeing jealousy as something that makes you wish you had what that person had, reframe that feeling, the pit you have in your stomach, as excitement instead. You just saw that your dream, although given to somebody else, is possible. You just saw it is factual that a human is capable of reaching the goal you want to reach so badly. You now have tangible proof that the dream can be reached by a human, and guess what? You're a human too. You should use jealousy as motivation. It's the only way to benefit from a negative emotion, and if you benefit from a negative emotion that usually sets most people back, you are on the undeniable path towards success. Addressing the feeling of wanting a big creator to come rescue you, lending out a hand extending from the top, bringing you closer to their successful position. This does happen, and you'll see those people blow up overnight from the success. You can't let this get you down. The best answer to seeing this phenomenon is to try and replicate it yourself with a creator smaller than you. You know that would be the best feeling in the world, suddenly getting recognition for all your hard work. Why don't you try give that feeling to someone else instead if you're up for it? Helping out the people closest to you is incredibly rewarding and might help you build your self-esteem and confidence as a result. After all, the people on your quote-unquote level also need help too, you know. The people you help have a higher likelihood of helping you out in the future in return too, and now you have someone you can become close to as you both try to reach your goals. So many people are focused on getting these big creators to notice them and help them in an upward motion that they forget to look around at the people beside them and below them who also could use some help and encouragement too. At all times, taking the negative emotions you face as a human and trying to turn them into a more positive experience for you will only make your life better and more fulfilling. I'm not saying ignore those negative emotions in the least. Sometimes we all need to have a pity party, but dwelling on misfortune and negative emotions will only continue to damage the motivated demeanor you need to continue. Sometimes you really just need to manufacture positive emotions because nobody has them all the time naturally. Nobody. How do I know when it's time to take art seriously as a career, and when should I quit my day job? This is a hard question to answer as everyone's standards for living and everyone's finances are different. In my case, after getting positive feedback from my audience on the products I intended to sell, I started out my first launch with 4 keychain designs. About 10 pieces of each design and 20 pieces of design I knew was going to be more popular than the other ones, and in around 8 hours I had sold out of all 50 pieces. It was that moment that I knew I had something that was worth investing my time in. I cannot say exactly when it's the best time for someone to quit their job and focus on their art career, as about a week or so later I lost my job, 2 months later after losing my prior job, and at that point I had just given up on trying to be employed by someone else. However, I always recommend approaching a new venture with caution. Cautiously optimistic though. I had been employed while slowly working on my art career on the side, and the only reason why I entered my art career sooner than expected was because I had gotten laid off. I always recommend having or building a safety net at all times when it comes to venturing into something unknown or unpredictable. In my case, while I was testing out product ideas while I was employed, my full-time employment was my safety net in case my art business failed. This safety net is what gave me resources I could use for starting my business, and it gave me confidence in case my artwork gig failed, I'd still be employed. I've seen so many artists try selling a product. They get lucky because that product performs better than expected, and then they immediately quit their day job to focus on art, only to find out that they got burnt out immediately because their second product release didn't perform as well as the first one, and they end up getting discouraged. I have good release days sometimes, and I have bad release days other times, so to avoid as much stress as possible, I recommend you holding onto your day job as long as you can. Starting out is very scary when you have to draw and create artwork to pay your bills. If your artwork fails to bring in money at some point, it starts to take a hit to your confidence and you think maybe I'm not good after all. This stress will lead you to start second guessing yourself, which leads to lower confidence. Try to avoid this scenario as much as possible and don't leave your day job until you very clearly and very reasonably see that your time drawing artwork is more valuable than your time working at a job which you are currently employed at. Always try to have a safety net with anything in life that has a high level of unpredictability. For example, even now as I'm only a month into my VTuber streaming career, I'm incredibly calm in the possibility of starting a new career, streaming, as I now have my successful art business as my safety net. If my streaming career fails, or just simply isn't for me, at any time I can fall back onto my art business as a mean to financially support myself as a safety net. Safety nets can psychologically make or break a person, so at all times build one or at least make sure there's one below you if you have the option. How to stay sane and not ruin a hobby when turning it into your career. I cannot speak on the staying sane part, but my best advice when it comes to not ruining a hobby you enjoy while making it a career is just understanding work is work. Work wouldn't be considered work if it wasn't work, so if you're working, it's going to be work. Does that make any sense? The way I've always seen it is work is always going to be work at the end of the day, and I'd much rather be sitting at home drawing pictures of anime girls all day than working for someone else. So I've always just been grateful for that fact that I can do this as a quote-unquote day job. I don't think having art as a career has ruined my hobby or my love of drawing though. I still love drawing even now, even if sometimes I don't always get to draw exactly what I want to. Overall, I enjoy the process of my day-to-day life. Sometimes for people, art is almost a therapeutic or spiritual thing. For me, it's always just been something I can do relatively well and that's about it. So the answer might also have to do with the kind of person you are and what art means to you. Choosing art as a career to me has always been the lesser of two evils in a way. I could be doing something way less more enjoyable, but I chose the path of doing something I relatively like, even if it makes some of the process a little less enjoyable than it was before. I have other hobbies I enjoy in life that I would never want to make my career because it would absolutely ruin my relationship with that hobby. So overall, it really depends on what art means to you on a personal level, if it's something that you should make into a career. Should I be wary on pursuing an art career because of AI? This is a difficult question to answer, and I don't believe we as a society have enough information to answer the question with an aspect of certainty. Technology is accelerating at an unbelievable rate. However, I will try my best to answer this question based on my knowledge and observations of the society around us. I think we as a society are at the point of no return when it comes to AI, and AI-generated images in particular. There is no avoiding it at this point. Cell phones are releasing with pre-installed AI generation image tools right inside of the box. I don't think we're capable of ever going back from that fact, and at this point it's too normal now, really. Facebook moms are eating these AI images up. That is to say, I do not think it would be responsible on my end to say art jobs and art careers are immune and impenetrable from artificial intelligence destroying human jobs. Huge companies that are profit-driven do not care about financially supporting artists. Why would they? They're at a point in their business that the only thing that matters is generating more profit for their business. This isn't a let's protect the little guys situation here, and in fact, I would be so bold as to claim that it was never about protecting anyone outside of the thing that makes the money in the first place. So yes, I believe concept artists, artists who do promotional illustrations, and artists who focus on commission work mostly will be affected by AI-generated images, if not now, in the future. I've already seen it happen. However, in the same sentiment of the thing I mentioned earlier about the comparison of the bigger artists to the smaller artists, and how I've personally seen smaller artists succeed more with their businesses over someone who has 10x their following, it is a fact right now that AI cannot run a business for you, it cannot create a successful product and make sure that product is high quality, and AI cannot replace a human interaction behind the process. I think now more than ever you are seeing content creators become more transparent with their processes in order to show more of the human behind the process. And more now than ever, the people who've always supported the human behind the art are wanting to uplift those creators even more. Because ultimately, there are people who care about the humans behind the process, and there are people who don't give a damn about the humans behind the process. I believe those who never gave a damn in the first place are the ones who will happily consume AI-generated products, and I believe because they never cared in the first place about ethical consumption, they never were the demographic of those who supported artists anyway. In the same way cheap companies seek stock images to represent their brand, we will see the same group of people who found stock imagery acceptable shift to generated images as a mean of inexpensively trying to generate income for their brand or business. Of course, AI can change again down the road, but for now I feel safe with my business model as a content creator who runs a small business and ships out high quality products myself. If that fact ever changes, however, I believe I have the confidence, experience, and intelligence to come up with something else that will allow me to survive. But who knows? This might just be my hubris talking. Now, I want to thank everyone who has sat here kindly listening to things I felt compelled to say. The process of creating a success for yourself that allows you to push towards your goals every day isn't easy. The process isn't for everyone either. I truly believe you have to have a certain level of delusion to have such a high level of confidence to pull off something so remarkable. I personally was never able to be employed by another person due to my personality type, and I don't come from a background of money, which translated directly to me not being able to afford college when I was younger to study these things more effectively. However, with the internet being more accessible than ever before, I believe we are all capable of being self-taught successes. That being said, I am always open to answering any and all questions you have about the process of starting your own successful online art business. I try my best to stream daily on YouTube, and at any time feel free to drop by with any questions you have regarding the process. I appreciate you sticking around for so long, and thank you so much for watching.